With a lineup full of new faces, the Vancouver Canucks fall 3-2 to the Detroit Red Wings in overtime. Let's break it down. This is Rink Wide Vancouver. And we welcome you inside the Rink Wide Vancouver studios on a snowy Sunday night in downtown Vancouver. I'm Jeff Pettersson. I've got Patrick Johnson of the Province and Post Media joining us remotely here. I'm in studio. PJ's got the headphones on, and he is ready to get to work here. And we do have lots to talk about. Pat, Rink Wide brought to you in part by Bet365. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Be sure to use code NATION when opening an account. The live chat is hopping on YouTube. No surprise there. Lots of people with lots of thoughts about some of the new players and many of the old ones, some of the familiar talking points around the Vancouver Canucks. If you want your comment to get to the front of the line, hit us up with the Super Chat. Our charity partner this season, the BC Mental Health Foundation, changing the face of mental health and addiction by supporting breakthroughs in care, public understanding, research, and knowledge exchange. Are you snowed in? Is that why you're not here in studio with me?
Oh, I suppose so. Family duties, you know?
Oh, okay.
Juggling all the balls in the air.
I hear you. Some of the faces are new, Pat, but the storyline remains the same. This team, for whatever reason, just cannot win hockey games in overtime. That's now 10 losses in OT this year. 3-10 in overtime, 4-11 in games that go beyond regulation. That's 11 points that they have left on the table. And as I look at the standings, they stay below the playoff bar, and that is one of the reasons why. The loser point has kept them within striking distance, but the points left on the table certainly have been a downforce on them to keep them below the playoff bar in the Western Conference.
What was it, 3 games last year that they lost in over? I mean, it is absolutely, if you want to understand, there's been 2 stats I've been really highlighting on. If you want to understand the difference of this team between this team and this year and last year, it's the scoring first, which of course they did tonight. But just, 53 games last year they scored first. That just says everything. You start ahead, you're probably going to win. It gives you a leg up. And the second one is that, first of all, that they've been going to overtime at all, but also that overtime record where it's just they don't seem to have any solutions. Obviously, no more JT Miller. So, it's been an unusual experience for this team this year for sure.
Well, there were some good things in this hockey game, and they're catching a Red Wings team, and people can look at the standings and say, middle of the pack, Detroit Red Wings. Guess what? With this win tonight, the Red Wings are the best team in the National Hockey League since Christmas. It's now February. They made the coaching change at the holiday break. Todd McLellan, a veteran coach, has been through the battles. Clearly, this was a team that was in need of a jolt, and Todd McLellan came in. He pumped these guys up. They score goals, although they didn't score a ton of goals in this game, but they got more than the Canucks did ultimately. They've got goal scorers, though, in Dylan Larkin and Raymond, and you saw Alex DeBrincat, the game breaker, with 2, including the winner in overtime. They've won 6 in a row. They just swept Edmonton, Calgary, and Vancouver 3 and 4 nights. They had the schedule working against them. The late game on Hockey Night in Canada, quick turnaround to a 5 o'clock start Pacific. Doesn't matter. Red Wings are finding ways to get it done, and that's what the Vancouver Canucks fans want to see from this hockey club, and instead, the Canucks make the changes. They move the deck chairs around a little bit, but in the end, still not good enough. The Canucks now 23, 18, and 11 on the season, 57 points. And look, you've heard me. You're probably sick of hearing me because I mention it all the time, whether it's here on Rink Wide or just sitting with you in the rink. The home record is so atrocious, but it has to be presented because these are the facts. 9 wins, 10 outright losses, 7 in that right-hand category, 9 wins in 26 games. And if you remember the last time they played at home against Washington before the road trip, they had a chance here tonight to win consecutive games on home ice for the first time this season. And now, if they don't beat Colorado and Toronto in the 2 games remaining this week at home, they're going to go beyond the Four Nations face-off break without stringing back-to-back wins together on home ice. Make that make sense for me, Pat.
Well, you want to understand how even more little sense this makes. The Red Wings, for the 4th game in a row, got badly shot. The Canucks had 17 more shot attempts at even strength. They had 18 last night in Calgary were outshot by 10 by the Oilers, 20 by the Kings. This is I think a paper tiger. And if there was an opponent that the Canucks should have been able, I mean, they were all over them, in fairness. They had all the possession tonight. But again, that inability to finish, which obviously is the complete opposite of last year. But this was a team that we thought was a upper tier finishing team, and finishing is a real thing. That is just the story. It doesn't. Other than that, I don't really have an explanation because Kevin Lankinen maybe gave up a goal early that would have liked back, but they only gave up 2 goals in regulation, and they were pretty stout defensively, especially with adding in a new face in Marcus Pettersson, giving Elias Pettersson. I thought he was fantastic. Like I think is really, really quickly turning himself into a serious option for this team. But that's not what we're talking about right now. We're talking about this Canucks team that seems unable to finish it and put it away at home.
Well, I mean, we can get into it. There's new guys to talk about. There are guys being thrust into some situations that, we're not sure if they're ready for, but DPD's looking like he's a primetime guy. And then, of course, you've got the veterans here. I want to get to a couple of super chats because people are already circling the wagons here. Domaniac Studios, I didn't see anything crazy bad this game. Still lacking finish from EP40 and Besser, which could have changed the outcome at multiple points. That is absolutely for certain. This one from Happy Jacks. I hate to be that guy, but third game in a row now that the refs have blatantly missed obvious calls. Something's going on. Third game this season, third game since the middle of January. The Canucks haven't had a power play. It happened in Toronto, it happened in Edmonton, and it happened here at home against the Detroit Red Wings. It is crazy in a 64.5-minute hockey game that there isn't a foul to be called, and I think there were. But I don't think officiating ultimately dictated the outcome of this hockey game. And some of the struggles we've seen with the Canucks power play and no Quinn Hughes, that's obviously a talking point that we have to get to as well. I don't know what a Canuck power play would look like on this night. Filip Chytil likely would have jumped in to man the point on the first unit, and we would have seen maybe Filip Chytil get some opportunities. But yes, do want to point that out, and I thank Happy Jacks for the super chat. There were a couple others. Just want to run through them very quickly here, although I've lost. There we go. This one from Kazrak says, EP, I guess the original Elias Pettersson, just slow and consistently behind the play. Had a couple of moments in the third, but boy, it took him a while to get going in this hockey game. And Spatzilli says, Petey just not at 1C. We either have to move him or actually get a first-line talent to help. You know who is a first C? And then it says J-Pat. And I don't know if that's a question, like, who is a first C, J-Pat? Suggesting the guy that left? Or is he saying that I'm the first line? I don't know. I was more of a checking center in my play. When I was at my best, I was a checking center, loved a penalty kill. I don't know that I'm a 1C here, but appreciate everybody stepping in. Keep the super chats coming, and of course, they support the BC Mental Health Foundation.
Let's start. I can say that much.
Let's start with Quinn Hughes' absence, Pat, because we hosted on Friday. We had the marathon session, obviously, with everything that went down. But one of the stories was Quinn Hughes. Yeah. Late in the game, was clearly laboring, didn't practice on Saturday, as we found out from Patrick Alvin, and we wondered. He was listed as questionable. Now, of course, the game before Christmas, he was listed as questionable, and he did play that night, but then missed 4. I just had a gut feeling around the rink this morning that Quinn wasn't going to play, but he took the warm-up, which was the interesting part to me, that I'm surprised that he wouldn't have known. And maybe he did, but he's a gamer. I know that he wants to play, but he took the warm-up. DPD didn't get regular reps in the warm-up. Like, DPD was thrown into a tough situation. He was out there for warm-up, but he was basically just an extra piece. And Quinn ultimately I watched closely. Quinn had a couple of moments during the warm-up that he went to the bench, talked to the training staff. Again, these were all tells that he probably wasn't going to play. And the Vancouver Canucks have now won 1 game without him. The 5 that he's missed, they beat Seattle in a shootout down at Climate Pledge right after Christmas. But obviously, he is their heart, their soul, their MVP, and everything else. They held it together without him. But this is going to be a fascinating week to see how much he plays, if at all. And then, of course, what does that mean for his participation in the Four Nations face-off?
I have a hard time imagining he's going to play in the Four Nations face-off at this point. I certainly wrote that after the game on Friday, but it's just hard to imagine. I mean, it was it was a surprise to me that he was there, given everything. I suppose it's a statement about, just wanting to, show his face. Maybe, I don't know. But a guy that the Canucks, it goes without saying, a guy the Canucks absolutely need. Listen, Filip Chytil, I thought actually tried to make some stuff happen more than we've seen him lately. Perhaps because usually he's deferring to Quinn Hughes, but he was active. Like I said, I was impressed with DPD's efforts. Marcus Pettersson, I mean, another guy that gets on the puck, not obviously a Quinn Hughes quality player, but you can already see that there is a difference potentially in how this team can move the puck up the ice, and that certainly has been a problem. They had a couple of those games on the road trip. I mean, Nashville and St. Louis especially, they did a much better job with the puck overall. The system worked a lot better, so perhaps they're in a better spot to absorb, over the next week here if they don't have Quinn Hughes playing. But like you said, one win without him in the lineup tells you everything. I mean, that tells you that is the story of the season, because they haven't been getting enough from Elias Pettersson. And I get the criticism. At the same time, I'll turn around and say, listen, folks, we didn't have any qualms about Elias Pettersson as 1C 2 seasons ago. So that mystery remains, or even, halfway through last season, when we were sitting here last year, a year ago today, we were fully confident that this guy was a 1C. So, I mean, things have obviously changed. Whether, he said he was dealing with some knee tendonitis last year. Like I've said many times, I've been told in terms of skating, he's not dealing with an injury. We know he's been dealing with something, he dinged up his shoulder or whatever it was, in around Christmas there. But he's been back. He's been shooting. I mean, he was active. Like the fact that he was involved, we hit I'm curious to see if that acceleration he actually had in overtime there, whether that is one that's his third 35-kilometer-an-hour plus acceleration of the season. I'm curious to see if that's recorded as such. But certainly getting up there with Brock Boeser, trying to get a goal scored. I mean, if he puts that puck away, I'm not sure we're having this discussion. Now, he didn't, and that's why we're having the discussion. Because in the end, this is what they need. I mean, the overtime is, Connor Garland is – I love watching Connor Garland play, but I'm not sure he's really your solution in overtime, because he doesn't have the pull-away speed, and he obviously doesn't have a hammer of a shot. And that's kind of what you need a lot of the time in overtime. And that's what Pettersson, in theory, has, and that's what Brock Boeser certainly has the shot anyway. For those two not to be able to get it done despite getting the opportunity, to me, is a reminder again of how much this team needs Quinn Hughes, even if they shouldn't.
Well, Liam Earhart on IG says, OT without Hughes is tragic, but OT with Hughes is tragic too on this hockey club for whatever reason. One of the things that just doesn't make sense when you've got one of the greatest difference makers in the National Hockey League, and the record is what it is, 3-10 now in games that have been decided in 3-on-3 overtime. The Canucks and the Wings split their season series with each winning in overtime and the other team's building. Jake DeBrusk had the hat trick back on December the 1st, and here it's Alex DeBrincat, which leads us to our 3 stars. Let's get to the 3-star selection here on Rink Wide Vancouver. The 3 stars selected by the Sportsnet crew in the building: DeBrincat, Chytil, and the goaltender Alex Lyon, who beat the Edmonton Oilers the other night, faced, I think, 47 shots there. 27 in this one, gives up the 2 goals. We're a little different. We've got Alex DeBrincat. We got DPD as the 2nd star. Picks up his first NHL point. He just crushed it with the underlying numbers. And yes, he started the night as the 3rd pair guy, and he was playing with Noah Juleson. But the final numbers on DPD, Corsi of 78%. The shot attempts were 25-7 in the Canucks' favor when he was out there 5-on-5. And the actual shots on goal, Pat, 14-2 in the Canucks' favor with the rookie defenseman out there. His matchup, like, he crushed his matchup. He was up against Seider and Sherratt for a lot of the night, the top pairing for the Red Wings. And, his plus 12 against Seider, plus 14-1 against Patrick Kane, right? Like, he did the job. And so that's, if you're looking for, more some moral victories here is one. I think this kid is ready to make a big step forward. Obviously, like I said earlier, Detroit maybe not as good as they seem to have been, but you know what? In the role, what they asked him to do, he was everything and more. Absolutely fantastic night for him. First time that he's tasted defeat in the National Hockey League. He had won his first. Obviously, he doesn't win alone, but the Canucks were 2-0 in his first 2 games. They do get a single point out of this one. He found out over the weekend that he wasn't going to the All-Star event down in Palm Springs. If they were going to make him a healthy scratch and he wasn't going, I kind of disagreed with that decision. He'd earned this opportunity. I know that being in the NHL is what it's all about, but if they were going to scratch him, I just thought send him, let him have his flowers of being part of the top bunch of guys in the American Hockey League for a weekend. But he gets pressed into duty here, and boy, he stepped in. He's not going to replace Quinn Hughes, but as we said, on short notice, and I'm sure he was aware of the situation, but the way Hughes took the warm-up, it looked like Quinn wanted to go, just couldn't, and DPD stepped in, and yeah, I mean, I want to see more of him. And obviously, as a left shot guy, if Quinn Hughes comes back, then it, the other part is that we're led to believe Carson Soucy was a healthy scratch for the first time this season. And we'll wait for confirmation from the head coach. I'm sure he'll be asked about that post-game. Let's get to Filip Chytil, though. He's the third star here, and sometimes we have fun with 3 stars and say home cooking, whatever, in Nashville. Here, the Canucks lose, and we've got 2, but it's rink wide. We can pick our own stars, and we did here. And that leads us into the night for Filip Chytil, who ties this game with a lovely solo effort after Connor Garland brings the puck across the line, loses control, and Chytil cuts to the left and found that 7-hole under the arm of Alex Lyon. And then some real excitement and in motion, and I thought that was good to see. Like, how many times have we seen this season, the Canucks in garbage time, whatever, they haven't scored a lot of significant, meaningful goals that have meat on the bone, but this one did for him individually in his Canuck debut, but to tie the game in the third period and play into the crowd a little bit, I'm all for it. It's supposed to be entertainment, and we outlined the home ice record. It hasn't been terribly entertaining at Rogers Arena, so good for him. His speed was noticeable. I thought he made some things happen out there, and ultimately a bottom line, and that's been an issue for far too many forwards on the Canucks. So as starts go, they didn't win the hockey game, but a fair bit to like, I thought, in the night from Filip Chytil.
He really intrigues me. The more I've kind of looked up and read about him, obviously drafted the same year as Elias Pettersson, was very young for that draft year, by the way, born September 5th. Of course, the cutoff is September 15th. So he was almost a 2018 draft year player. Makes the Rangers in his rookie season as a pro in the NHL. He'd been playing pro hockey already in Czechia when he was drafted. Like, the guy clearly has the physical tools to be a top line professional player. Now, can he be truly a second line center? I'm not so sure about that, but you can see why he is a player that the Canucks do hope plays a bigger role on this team than he's been able to show, and obviously that he can do it consistently after having the big concussion scare last season. So the goal was fantastic. I mean, it was exactly what you want. Followed up, picked up the puck, forced the play, everything that Rick Tocchet has been wanting to see, right? Drove the lane, kept pushing the other team, pushing the other team's defense, forcing them to make plays, and then a great finish. Gets the goalie moving, picks the top corner. Dramatic fashion. These are the kind of debuts that players dream of, and he got it tonight.
He had a couple of other opportunities. His line with Garland and Joshua were buzzing in the second period. Off the rush, Chytil forced Lyon to make a pretty good save. The first DeBrincat goal came as a result of Chytil down the left side, snapped it wide, and Garland couldn't keep the puck in, kind of lost a battle there, and the wings went the other way, and DeBrincat with time and space. You saw how dangerous he can be and got his first of 2 there. But I like the fact that Chytil was shooting the puck and trying to make some things happen offensively. Ends up playing a ton for a guy that flew in last night. And I talked to all those new guys. Their heads were all spinning. Drew O'Connor said he still really hadn't even processed the trade, but he was just going to play on instinct tonight. But Filip Chytil plays 20 minutes and 3 seconds, so up over 20 minutes of ice time, had 3 shots on goal on 5 attempts. And a subplot I don't want to get too deep into is, we talked about it, though, the other night after the JT Miller trade. Canucks crushed it in the faceoff circle, and Chytil was at the tip of the spear. Goes 9-3, so wins 75% of his faceoffs. Teddy Bluger was 8-3. Elias Pettersson was 11-6. The only guy that struggled, Pia Suter, and we've seen that from him in his time as a Vancouver Canuck. But hey, he scored a goal, so we'll credit him. And funny how that works. 23 without a goal for Pia Suter, and all of a sudden you can't stop the guy. He's got 3 in his last 4 games, so his offense seems to be coming around. But I'm getting away from the fact that the 3 stars were DeBrincat, DPD, and Filip Chytil. The 3 stars, a presentation of Greta Bar YVR. And 3 games to go before the Four Nations face-off. So if you're looking for a place to watch Canuck hockey, keep Greta in mind. And then, of course, it'll be hopping during the Four Nations as well. Every Rink Wide, we tell you about the big screens, the arcade games, the new street food menu, weekly drink specials as well. Get down there, check it out. Good time guaranteed at Greta Bar, 50 West Cordova, Greta Bar. Let the games begin. All right, so pretty thorough overview, I think, of Filip Chytil's night out there for the game winner. Unfortunately, he was the guy that was kind of caught deep, and then it was Garland and Filip Hronek who were back. But I'm not going to pin the overtime goal on Filip Chytil. I think overtime, if they play more overtime, pun intended, or
no more.
Sure it was. No, it wasn't.
No more.
No. Okay, but I think his speed, like we talked about, like Boeser.
Yeah.
As much as you like Brock Boeser's finishing ability, overtime's not really his thing, and he's just not much of a factor out there. So if you can insert some speed into this lineup, it's going to be welcome, and you do hope that it can be some sort of difference for the Vancouver Canucks. All right, so we talked about Chytil. Marcus Pettersson, let's get there. You mentioned him a little bit, but comes with this reputation as a good dude in the locker room. That's going to help. Look, this locker room can use some good dudes these days. We know that. Let's see where the dust settles ultimately. But I had a really good chance to talk to him. I asked him about. I said, please tell me your nickname in Pittsburgh wasn't Petey, and he laughed and he was like, yeah, it was. So apparently, Dragon is another one that Drew O'Connor had copped to. Maybe they'll go with Dragon for Marcus Pettersson. Again, without Quinn Hughes, it's kind of hard to fully slot him, but just in isolation. I mean, I tried to watch him pretty closely in this hockey game. Again, these guys are getting opportunities. I don't think he imagined that he was going to play close to 26 minutes in his Canuck debut, but 25-57 for Marcus Pettersson. I did notice the puck-moving utility, though. Like, not flashy, but fairly effective. And again, if he is fully slotted as a second-pair guy and maybe not against the top players on the other team, I think you'll only see that improve and increase for him. So I know they didn't win the hockey game. We sort of keep qualifying it that way, but individually, I think he came as advertised. I saw some nice things for Marcus Pettersson to build off of.
When you throw three guys into the lineup who have never practiced with your team, right? Like, that's the thing. They didn't really have a morning skate. They kind of worked on a few things, but like, it was an optional skate. These guys are just being thrown into the fire. It was honestly, I thought, as good as you can hope for from all three of them. And you sort of touched on it already, but Chytil, the way he, I think he's an interesting center to play with a guy like Dakota Joshua, right? Able to push the play forward. And Pettersson's the same kind of player. Like, he's a guy that I know that they've had. I mean, obviously Jim Rutherford told The Athletic how excited he was about getting a guy that he's long admired. He's now traded for this guy twice. Yep. He's the reverse Tanner Pearson. Who's talents they admire. And, this was the kind of guy that they've been talking about for a long time, is finding that second pairing defenseman who can move the puck. I think that in their heart of hearts, they would have made it a right shot guy, but here they are.
Yep.
They're not going to complain. Their defense core is now more balanced. We certainly have been lamenting the balance of the defense core all season. It should get better, and we'll see if it does. And Pettersson's going to play a big role in that. I mean, just quickly, I mean, obviously the numbers don't tell the whole story, but, scoring chances were 10-7 with him on the ice, right? Like, he did a good job. He forced play to the outside. And then, that first pass, we saw that first pass more than one time. It'll be interesting to see, obviously, when they start playing some tougher opponents, how that all plays out. But, once he gets familiar with the system, and the system is very, I mean, I know people have been down on all that, but what we saw last year was a system that was very, very pro moving the puck quickly and getting it out of the zone and having guys moving quickly. Whether they skated fast was a different question, but the idea was to move fast and move the puck quickly. And he's a guy that seems well attuned to that. So yeah, it was a good first viewing, I would say.
Lefty all around in the chat says Marcus is a keeper for sure. I have tunnel vision with the Canucks, so first time I've really seen him. And he is very good. We've got another super chat, again, supporting the BC Mental Health Foundation. This one from Spadzilli. PJ, you've reported that people around the team don't believe tendonitis is still affecting Petey. So why is he still so slow?
I mean, the best guess I have is that teams have figured out how to defend him. I think that's been the biggest thing on this, is that you think about how rarely he's had space, right? Like, he's struggled to find space. And I think teams have just recognized getting in his grill frustrates him, gets in his way. And we're seeing that play out. And now the challenge is on him. And like I said, it was good to see. There were moments where he stepped on the gas a little bit. I mean, he did it in overtime. That's, I think, what people need to watch for is to see does he find himself into those gaps more than he has. You know, with the last home game last week, I thought about that post game. It was, I asked, when Quinn Hughes scores the goal on the backhand, right, cuts through the middle of the ice, obviously the best skater on the team and if not the best skater in the league. But nonetheless, we have seen him do that. And so, post game asked Rick Tocchet about that. I said, isn't this what you want from all your guys? And he goes, yes. And Elias Pettersson is top of the list. So that's what people should be watching for, because functionally it's not supposed to be a problem. It's just all about essentially finding the space, seeing the space, and being able to beat guys one-on-one again. And he's going to have to find it, whether that's, he needs to add some strength in the off season, what have you. But in terms of technique, there's a lot to watch for right now. And we've seen glimpses of it, but it hasn't been consistent enough.
All right. I want to get to the stat that stands out, because that's going to lead us into a couple of things that Rick Tocchet has already addressed at the podium after a 3-2 loss to the Detroit Red Wings in overtime. Stat that stands out is, with Carson Soucy out, no Canucks defenseman has played in every game this season. Tyler Myers was suspended for the 3 games, injuries obviously, and tonight Rick Tocchet has confirmed that this is or was a healthy scratch for Carson Soucy. So the Canucks have 3 guys that have played in every game this year. They are Garland, DeBrusk, and Teddy Bluger. But Rick Tocchet, confirming Carson Soucy was a healthy scratch, said, quote, he needs a reset. He's had a tough go here. So some pretty strong comments, short but very much to the point from the head coach. And Carson Soucy sat down. I know that people are freaking out in the chat that Carson Soucy comes out and Noah Juulsen somehow manages to stay. But look, if Quinn Hughes wasn't playing and they made this decision on Carson Soucy, now they did have Victor Mancini was here and skated and took the warm-up and thought maybe he was going to get his opportunity. But I guess, how much is too much when it comes to new faces? Say what you will about Noah Juulsen. Coaching staff knows him at least. I think they're still trying to figure out what exactly they have in this new young defender who I think they want to get a look at. But now you've got Colorado. Then you got San Jose, maybe that's the game, and then you got the Toronto Maple Leafs coming in on Saturday, so we'll see what they do. And obviously with Hughes, the other thing with Rick Tocchet there was Rick Tocchet said that Quinn wanted to get it out, but it wouldn't have been the smartest decision to play him. 48 hours, we'll see how it is. So I guess that makes him questionable for Tuesday's game. The marquee matchup of Cale Makar versus Quinn Hughes is in jeopardy as we sit here 48 hours from puck drop.
I've got to say this stat that stands out, sort of an homage to your point about how the Canucks didn't once the season have their full lineup, right? It's the same kind of. They've intentionally tried a lot of faces here. The Soucy thing, I had heard a while back this was something they were going to think about. I'm not surprised. I think they are somewhat at a loss at how much of a struggle this season has been. He was a revelation last year. He was better than anybody expected, and nobody expected him to be what he's been this season. But they did, we didn't expect him to be quite the player he was. He was a dynamic addition to the lineup. He was a big part of the story, and his struggles. I think we all assumed that he was dealing with some kind of injury early in the season, but lately, it's been a guy that. Confidence. You don't want to just say it's confidence, but. It's just nothing's really worked for him, and like you said, he would be an option on the right side, right? Like Noah Juulsen, they do like lefty righty, but Noah Juulsen, they like his penalty killing. I know he's frustrating a lot of people, but he survives. Vinny Desharnais did not, and it'll be interesting. I still think it's gonna be interesting to see what they do there. In terms of adding another defenseman. For you. Yeah.
If they scuffle between now and March 7th, is Carson Soucy's time in Vancouver in jeopardy if you've got DPD pushing from behind.
Yeah.
You've got Marcus Pettersson here now, who is clearly the number 2 on the left side with a healthy Quinn Hughes. Like, Carson Soucy's getting pushed down to the third pair at best, if not pushed out entirely. And we know that, like, once Jim Rutherford gets rolling here, as he did over the weekend, like, I think everybody's got to be kind of looking over their shoulder and wondering a little bit about what their future is here. So that's going to be something worth monitoring. But you're right. I do wonder if at some point Soucy slides over to the right side, DPD gets his opportunity to play, but if they do want to see Mancini, then somebody else is going to have to. So lots of moving pieces, as Rick Tocchet always talks about the puzzle. We'll see how the puzzle all comes together for the Vancouver Canucks here in the next little while.
And I will point out Boston University's season, or at least regular season, ends March 8th, and then we will see what happens after that.
I pick up what you're laying down there. We'll see how things go. But obviously, I mean, a lot of this is going to be predicated on what the hockey club as a whole does between now and that trade deadline. And if they continue to languish below the playoff bar, that probably changes the conversation. I can't see that this management group's going to go all in with a bunch of trades to improve the hockey club if ultimately there's no guarantee they make the playoffs. And even if they do, they run headlong into Winnipeg or Edmonton or Vegas in round number 1. So
I don't think we were surprised yesterday to hear Patrick Allvin be non-committal on whether he was going to make any more trades between now and the trade deadline, because you're pretty sure he is, but he's never going to say that.
A couple other things from the game tonight before we can expand again on some of the bigger, broader picture issues with this team. We touched on all the new guys. Drew O'Connor, his speed was noticeable, and I thought, he doesn't pick up a point on the opening goal, but that sequence got in on the forecheck, forced Alex Lyon to mishandle the puck a little bit. Suter walked out of the corner, had a chance, stuck with it, came back to the point, and DPD with a shot, and Suter with the deflection. And as I said, 3 of 4 games now, Pia Suter has scored. I mean, good for him, because he's gone way too quiet to go 23 without. But, again, locking on to the individual players, I thought O'Connor was as advertised and noticed some of his straight line speed. And, this is a team that isn't fast enough on the whole. So, hey, if he can insert a little bit of speed up front, I'm here for it.
And make that line. I mean, I think he's the right pair now with Kiefer Sherwood in terms of sort of buzzing, hardworking, aggressive wingers to play with, I guess, Teddy Bluger. That's a trio that makes sense. Especially if you need Dakota Joshua to be the player you signed him to be. Right. And so if, like I said earlier, if Filip Chytil ends up being a good pair for him and Garland, there's some sense to all this on how it should work. Drew O'Connor, I laughed a little bit when I saw his name was in the trade because that was a guy. I mean, I can't for the life of me recall which conversation I had with Jim Rutherford, but we were talking about finding collegiate free agents. It might have even been very early on, and Drew O'Connor was a guy that he cited. I remember in that conversation as an example of the kind of player that you can find in collegiate free agency. This isn't a guy that is going to become a superstar or anything like that, but he becomes a very, very competent depth winger. I think Patrick Allvin mentioned this. I mean, this is why one of the reasons why the Canucks have not been hesitant to trade away late round picks, even mid round picks, because in the end they know those guys are probably not going to make it. And you can if you're really smart and really aggressive about this, you can probably find them as a collegiate free agent or a European free agent. And that's going to be this kind of player. Picking up this kind of player is going to be pretty regular, I think, as long as this management group is in charge.
Just to double back on something you said there, are we all, the collective here, or the Vancouver Canucks, just going to have to accept that Dakota Joshua isn't going to launch this season based on all he's been through? And again, early on, I kind of thought, he's got to be better than he's been. The fact that he's played in the NHL after testicular cancer, I get it. Like, that in itself is a win, but he also got a hefty raise off last season, and he's playing again. He has 2 goals and 2 assists. He got 4 points in 27 hockey games for a guy that was such an impact player in the games that he played last year and then in the playoffs as well. He's a big body. It feels like it might be a lost season for him overall. There's a little time, but there's only 30 games left in the regular season. So I know he hasn't played a lot, but I guess I just expected a little bit more by now.
Here's a number for you. Last year, he played 63 games. He was on the ice for at even strength for 35 Canucks goals for. This year, in 27 games, the Canucks have scored 8 even strength goals, which just tells you that what's going on. I mean, he hasn't been caved in. They've only given up 11, right?
Yeah.
But, like, there's just not enough happening there. And I am hesitant to go at him too hard, given where he's come from. And he's not, I mean, like, for you and I, like, the forever example, the best case scenario, Mario Lemieux when he came back. But, like, it was Mario Lemieux. You know,
yes. We're not talking about Mario Lemieux.
You know, so like, to me, it is remarkable he's back in and that he's contributed all. And I there were moments where I was like, okay, but there's just not the thundering hits that we saw last year, and there's certainly not the reach, creating opportunities from that. You think about all the pucks that he got to last year, and we just haven't seen that. Certainly not in front of the net. Well,
and I hear the screams. I see it in the chat. Get Bluger with Joshua and Garland back together. Well, Connor Garland's the only guy that is going of that trio. Like, Teddy Bluger is another sort of sunk cost this season outside of his penalty killing. But, like, this idea that was one of the best third lines in hockey, and Teddy Bluger he's been caved defensively. There's nothing there offensively from him. It's been forever since he scored a goal. And so just this idea that you reunite them and somehow they're going to catch that lightning in a bottle again, I don't see it. But I mean, Rick Tocchet has tried a bunch of different things. Maybe he does go back to that, hoping to sort of rekindle whatever they had going last year, because 2 of those 3 guys just don't look anything like the player that they were last season. Bally Beach Bum. I don't know if that's Andrei Kuzmenko's code name, but
Mike Pahorley. I bet you it's Mike Pahorley.
Nice to see the new guys actually taking the puck to the middle and trying to make some plays, hate the dump-ins, and play along the boards. We certainly have seen enough people lamenting that. Yeah, I mean, I thought Chytil with his speed carried the puck a fair bit, and if this is his jumping on point with your head spinning from having your life completely uprooted and move across the continent, all that, like, they get to catch their breath tomorrow. I mean, I think there'll be a first practice for the Vancouver Canucks, and then hopefully things settle down a little bit for these guys. I would imagine they treat it almost like a 4-game road trip, right? Like, come to Vancouver and just get to the Four Nations break, and then you can sort of exhale and catch up with your life at that point. For a guy like JT Miller, you go to a new team, he doesn't get the break because then he has to go directly into Four Nations face-off duty. Now, JT's been traded before, and he's in a familiar place in New York, but, like, for him, he had to jump on a flight from Dallas to Boston and play back-to-back games this weekend. That has to be difficult as well. So, I mean, I like, it's one of the things we don't have to worry about in our lives is getting traded, Patrick, as much as some people might like that. It comes with the territory. They're well compensated, but the human side of it must be just an absolute, like, gut punch to the system to recognize that you are expected at the drop of a hat to pick up your life wherever it was and get on with it and get to the next stop.
I was going to say, the only thing we have to be afraid of is getting placed on waivers, right? But
that's happened to me a few times.
It is a head spinning experience. There's absolutely no doubt about that. And any guy that we've ever talked to, I mean, I still remember Tyler Toffoli, basically having to deal with a media scrum for the first time in his career, and just him stepping away. And I asked him a question as he walked by, and his head literally spun. It was like, wait, there's still people talking to me. And the experience of it all, I get it. It's a lot, but these guys, I suppose the difference here is you got a couple of guys coming from New York where they do get a lot of attention, even if the Rangers aren't, the biggest team in town. It's still the biggest city in the world. And then, the Penguins, obviously there's a solid media core and they're used to how it works. And now they'll be here and they'll figure out what's going on, and they'll have a sense of what their coaches want from them and what they're trying to do, and on and on and on. So yeah, it was a game. It was a game that I thought, how's this going to go, especially integrating this many guys, right? And across your lineup. How is this going to go? And, it went pretty well, I thought, and so there's stuff to build from. Can Filip Chytil find a way to find that role, to be that guy the way they want him to be? What we saw tonight, I thought pretty consistently was the guy that I'm sure that they hope he will continue to be. There's always the buzz of the new team and all that kind of stuff, and finding your way, and okay, where do I live now? The emotions and the mentality of it all, and like I think you said, Drew O'Connor just like, wait, where am I? What's going on? The colors. I mean, I can't remember who once I talked about that. You just sort of get used to what colors you're looking for. You get and you're coming from the Penguins, you're looking for black and gold, and now you're looking for blue. I mean, it's different for sure.
No, I think that was part of it. The four new guys were out skating this morning. Kiefer Sherwood joined them, got back in the lineup, set the Canucks franchise record for hits in a season with 30 games to go if he stays healthy. So, I mean, we knew he was going to obliterate it, but to do it this quickly, ultimately it'll be fun to see where he tops out. And I thought, he looked like he had been shot out of a cannon. I thought he was the most noticeable Canuck in the first 15 minutes or so, making up for a little bit of lost time, perhaps. Not that he doesn't bring it on a nightly basis, but he seemed to have an extra spring in his step. I thought it was interesting this morning, because remember before the road trip, Rick Tocchet said he's not going to join us, but he's not going to fly with us, but he might join us on the trip. And Kiefer Sherwood said he pushed to get out on the road and didn't want to sit around any further, but then thought, 4-hour trip for one game, maybe think the better of it. He looked rested and ready to go. And, again, I thought on that line with O'Connor on the other side and Suter in the middle, I thought that was probably start to finish the best line for the Vancouver Canucks, or at least one of their top two lines, along with Chytil and his group. Spatzilli with the super chat. Shout out to Gretabar YVR. Yes, we already did, but I'm glad you did too. And there you go. So it's not just us that are talking about Greta on a nightly basis. We got Spatzilli in the super chat jumping through. Tyler Gibbs, another super chat here, says really liked MP3.
It's going to be that, isn't it? I think that's what it's going to be.
But he should wear if he wore number 3, of course that would be
Easy.
it. Yeah. Instead, he goes 29, which he wore 28 in Pittsburgh, and the Luc Bourdon rule came into effect here, and good on the Canucks for protecting the integrity. Ian Cole tried to get 28 last year. It's an unwritten it's an not fully retired number, but it's there, and guys respecting that. So I that's why Marcus Pettersson is wearing number 29 instead of the 28 that he wore in Pittsburgh. All right. Look, people didn't come here to hear us talk about politics, but politics were at play before the drop of the puck here tonight. And I just, first of all, want to give a shout out to Agisha Mudasara. I hope I'm saying that correctly. The Canucks were hosting their annual Black History Night or Black Celebration Night. And this isn't somebody that sings the national anthem on a regular basis. So this is a big opportunity in front of 18,000 people, and it just so happens, and we saw it in Ottawa last night and some of the other Canadian cities, we're under economic attack right now, and when people come together, it's an opportunity for them to, voice their opinions on matters of the day, and this is one of them right now. And so I thought she did a terrific job under the circumstances. I also think the crowd did its job. I have no issues with the reaction. I just felt for her first note to hear boos raining down, I hope that she was prepped for the climate that we're in. And you could see her hands were shaking. I'm sure there were nerves. There would have been nerves regardless, I think. And so I thought she toughed it out and, was a pro's pro. And good on her. So, Agisha, congratulations on doing a nice job under tough circumstances. Again, I don't want to get too deep into the reasons for the booing, but it's there. And, I do wonder with the Four Nations face-off coming up here in just over a week's time, in Montreal to start and then into Boston, is this going to pick up steam, or is this something that's going to fade away, just people having a weekend where they voice their displeasure?
I'll just note that on TV, obviously, they aired the initial booing and then I think turned it down. But certainly it was clear. We could hear the sort of the roar of support for her as she began the Canadian anthem and got her going again. And that was really, that was good to hear. I find myself wondering how much longer we're going to have anthems at all.
And maybe this could be some sort of tipping point. We shall see. All right, we've talked about it. Canucks lose 3-2 in overtime to the Detroit Red Wings. The overtime record is atrocious. The home record, it's atrocious too. The overall record, not good enough, and it's not going to allow the Canucks to climb above the playoff bar on a night like this one. But there were some things to like, and we talked about Filip Chytil. Here he is talking post-game about his first night and his first goal as a member of the Vancouver Canucks.
Yeah, it's been not bad. It's I had to find my legs a little bit in the first period, but then Garley and Tocchet, they helped me a lot during the game, and then we started to play with the speed. We had a lot of time in offensive zone, but we talk to each other, we got to be more effective going to the net, and but for the first game, I think it went pretty well, but it's a lot of good things what we can build on.
You showed a lot of patience on your goal to wait in a high slot and keep going and outweight guys. Was that the plan? What did you see on that goal? The way they were defending you?
Yeah, there was some players in front of me and even some guys behind to try to strip the puck from me. I just saw that there was not an open lane to shoot right away, so I was holding that as long as I could, and I'm happy that it went in.
Obviously, quite a celebration. What does it mean to you to start with a goal right away after the trade?
A lot. That meant a lot to me in that moment. It was so many emotions in my head, and I said I want to build on that and keep working hard every day and be even better than today.
To get the tap to go out first in overtime, were you surprised at all?
I don't know if I was surprised, but I was very happy that I get that opportunity to be there. Unfortunately we lost that game, but we have another game in 2 days, and we gotta build on this game, and I believe if we're gonna play like this, most of the nights we gonna get 2 points.
Positives to build off, though, with the way you guys drove play in particular?
Exactly, yeah. That was good. The third period was, I think, the best period for us. We had so much pressure in offensive zone, but how I said, we need to score in that opportunities, and most of the nights we're gonna get 2 points if we're gonna play like this.
Well, there you go. Welcome to Vancouver, Filip Chytil. Some offensive pressure, but have to score. You probably will encounter this many times over these final 30 games that offense can and usually is hard to come by for the hockey club. But the hope is obviously that this is a jumping on point for him and that he's going to be a guy that they can lean on to produce a little bit there. But I thought some honesty in his answers about getting the tap to start overtime. He was excited for that, and we talked about what his speed might be able to bring to this group. And hey, change might do the Canucks well. The guys that they've had here for all of this season to this point haven't been able to get it done in overtime, so we shall see what Filip Chytil is able to bring to the mix. They've got Colorado coming up on Tuesday, and obviously that presents its own problems in trying to contain Nathan MacKinnon and others, so we'll see what they do on a matchup front there. But still, people in the chat just some real frustration about the fact that Elias Pettersson wanted the smoke. He wants to be the guy, and plays 18 minutes and 59 seconds in this hockey game and just the one shot on goal. I thought he did some things in the third. Besser set him up, and Joe Veleno was able to get back on the back check. And then I thought you saw his vision with the pass to Höglander where he drew three guys to him, got it across to Höglander, and then Höglander to Besser, and that was a 2-2. That would have been the go-ahead goal. Unfortunately, it didn't happen there. But, in overtime, again, you're waiting for him to be some sort of difference maker. And, the three overtime goals the Canucks have scored this year, JT Miller, well, he doesn't play here anymore, Jake DeBrusk, from Petey in Detroit, and Connor Garland. But Elias Pettersson, they've been to overtime 15 times. 15 times. And I know he missed a few games there, but getting paid 11.6. Chips are down, best players in overtime. Come on, you know me, do something. And it just hasn't. Yeah, I know. I was waiting, but
I was waiting. Yeah. No, I was gonna say the Pettersson. I think you nailed it, wasn't you? a week or two ago, you're just highlighting the lack of assists.
Yeah.
And the and I think you just nailed it there. Like, okay, it was great. He got Brock best of the puck, but like he just hasn't been doing that at all. It's not even the cutting in the middle. It's not even the acceleration. It's the lack of sort of playing with his vision that it's just baffling how it's just completely evaporated from the game. He was never the passer that JT Miller is, right? Like JT Miller, and I've said this so many times, and I will say that now is probably the thing I'm going to miss the most, is just watching him pass the puck. The way he was able to nail people in stride, just thread needles. That is not Elias Pettersson's game, but his game has been consistently to create opportunities for himself and for his line mates.
Yeah.
And like I said earlier, we've seen glimpses of it. We just haven't seen any consistency to it. And I think you highlighting the sort of overtime lack of success as a team. Listen, he is a guy that's paid to thrive in those situations, and we just haven't seen it.
And just off the top of my head here, Kyle Connor, a natural first period hat trick not that long ago when they played Winnipeg.
Yeah.
Leon Draisaitl had both Edmonton goals here. They lost when the Canucks beat them, but Draisaitl scored twice.
Yeah.
DeBrincat with 2 in this hockey game. Rope Hintz had 2 the other night in Dallas. Like, best players are stepping up and doing this around the National Hockey League. And, you have the leading point getter in the NHL coming in here ready to pop off at a given moment on Tuesday, and Nathan MacKinnon. That's where I'm looking. We can't sit here and prop him up for an assist and a nice pass. Like, there has to be a bottom line to all of this. And again, 52 games in now. I know he hasn't played them all, but 52 in, 30 to go, and the waiting game continues here for Elias Pettersson to be a difference maker. All right, I want to get to our line of the night. We'll turn our attention for a brief moment at the very least to other games around the National Hockey League, and that is the Monday schedule, the Bet365 line of the night here. We tell you every time that this segment is brought to you by Bet365, a proud partner of Rink Wide Vancouver. Open an account with Bet365 and bet on a huge range of markets. Use code NATION. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. You got Ottawa and Nashville going at it. The Ottawa Senators. Some talk and some buzz now about Travis Green being in the running for Coach of the Year. If the Sens can get above and stay above the playoff bar, we'll see what happens. But they've been red hot of late, and we'll see if that continues. I'm taking the Sens on the money line against the Nashville Predators. Never really know what you're going to get from the Preds. Didn't look all that great against the Canucks the other night, and they've been better since Christmas. But I'm looking at those plucky Sens to get the job done. So we shall see. Rick Tocchet, Coach of the Year last year, is good buddy Travis Green. We'll see if he has to hand the hardware over to the guy that used to coach here.
I don't bet. I just don't. I never win. So this is the worst recommendation ever. But I see what you're saying there. That Predators team is abysmal, and that Senators team is a lot of fun. So well done, Travis Green. It's been fun to watch, and well done, Adam Gaudette. A story sitting in the can that will never get written about how.
You had a big long chat with them when they were through here just before Christmas.
And it's just the timing never worked. Maybe I'll shuffle it and they can run it in the Ottawa Sun. How Adam got his groove back. But it's a good story, and God knows Senators fans need some light, and some opportunity to have some fun, and they are now. So.
Well, they're above the playoff bar. In fact, they're in a divisional playoff spot right now. They're 4 points behind the Toronto Maple Leafs, and that would be the first-round playoff matchup in the Atlantic, Battle of Ontario. So that would be fun. We'll see how that all plays out. There's a lot of hockey to go here still, and there's a little bit of hockey to go down in Seattle on the live stream here. Calgary with a 3-2 lead on the Seattle Kraken. This is a big game that I'm sure the Canucks are watching, because the Canucks, with their single point, for the time being, pulled even with Calgary, both of them with 57 points. But this is the Flames game in hand,
right,
and they're trying to nurse a 3-2 lead across the finish line. If they do, they will pull 2 points clear of the Vancouver Canucks. And then, again, you got Colorado coming in here on Tuesday. Avs are... what a funny season it's been for them. Complete overhaul of their goaltending. They've got the leading scorer in the National Hockey League. They shut out Philadelphia 2-0 earlier today after shutting out St. Louis on Friday. So they've had back-to-back shutout wins. That's what they're coming off of as they come into Vancouver. They've won 3 of 4, and yet through all of that, they're still in a wild card spot, which speaks to the strength of the Central Division. And there's going to be a good team that's a wild card team just based on what's ahead of them with Winnipeg and Dallas and the Minnesota Wild as well. So, I mean, Colorado can get into a divisional spot, but right now, that's the kind of team, and obviously there are some depth issues, but if you win your division and you run into Nathan McKinnon and Cale Makar in the first round as a wild card team, and they think they've solved their goaltending with Mackenzie Blackwood, who's 12-5-1, by the way, since being acquired by the Avs, .925 save percentage in Colorado. So they made their trade. Marty Necas has been a point-a-game guy, 5 points in 5 games since the trade. And with Rantanen no longer there, Arturi Lehkonen leads the Colorado Avalanche with 21 goals. I don't know that a lot of people would think that or know that, but that's the case. McKinnon's got 80 points, by the way. So he's 3 ahead of Draisaitl right now, but he leads the NHL, 20 goals, 60 assists, 80 points, and we'll see if he can add to that total here in Vancouver. And, of course, you remember the last time the Avs were here, mid-December, Kiefer Sherwood with the hat trick, and the Vancouver Canucks defeated the Colorado Avalanche. That was one of their better home ice performances. That in Florida. You remember early in the season we used to ask, but who have they beaten? You don't ask that. They don't have enough wins, but good win over Colorado, a good win over Florida, Washington, Toronto, beat Edmonton. There have been some good wins and some good opponents among their victories. It's just that they only have 23 wins, which isn't nearly enough. They had 34 at the midway mark last year, and they've got 23. So when we compare I keep telling myself, last year was last year, you have to leave it in the past, but I do find that I'm drawn into these comparisons year over year. And last year at the midway mark, the Canucks had 34 wins, and here they have 23. Or not even the midway mark, I think it was the 50-game mark. So they got some work to do. No question about that. Michael in the chat saying, I wonder if the players are getting conflicting messages from the coaching staff. Sedin hockey is a heck of a lot different from Tocchet hockey. And he mentions that likely as a reference to EP40. Yes, the Sedins are around. They help out, but they are not the coaches. The buck stops with the head coach. And so as much as the Sedins played the game the way that they did, they have to take, it's the way it works. They got to take a back seat to Rick Tocchet in the way that he wants to conduct business here.
I found it interesting. I think it was last week and a half ago, when Rick kind of out of nowhere defended his assistant coaches. He says, I feel, these guys, blah, blah, blah. And, he's talked often about how much he values the work of his staff and how important it is. And, we sit there and we watch practices and we see Yogi generally is the main guy running the practice. And Yogi Svenkoski obviously has trained. He's sort of the most, I think, conventionally trained coach on that staff. He's been a development coach at all kinds of levels, working with youth hockey and so on and so on and so on. So, the idea that there are different rules for different players, I suppose that's true, but Elias Pettersson will have the same set of rules as Quinn Hughes, right? Quinn Hughes doesn't seem to have any problems delivering the puck to the slot. Elias Pettersson has. And JT Miller, before he left, it was the same kind. That was the strange thing about Miller this season, was just what a ghost he was so many nights. So, the overall kind of enthusiasm level, I think, has been what's been lacking more than anything. But a night like this makes you think, well, maybe they got it again. Obviously, huge challenge on Tuesday. And that's going to be, to me, the interesting thing to see is how do they adjust? Do they keep doing these things? I think I saw a note somewhere. I guess we're hearing from Rick Tocchet soon, but Tocchet talks a bit about, he hopes that the work Chytil and O'Connor put in getting to the slot will rub off on the other team. Because like I said, that was something I pressed him on. To be clear, this is what you want, right? You don't want he does want generally safe calls, but he wants his guys attacking. Worked last year, seems to have disappeared this year.
Well, the 2 goals that they did score, nice deflection from Pius Suter, and that was on the interior, standing, middle of the slot, and was able to get his stick on the puck there, and then Chytil attacking the net there. So, yes, there were some things there, but obviously not enough, and in the end, not enough goals. They lose by a score of 3-2. All right, yes, a couple of thoughts here from Rick Tocchet. We won't play the entire time at the podium, but here is the Canucks head coach after yet another disappointing overtime loss, this one to the Wings.
Yeah, I thought we controlled the game, and I thought guys played real. I thought new guys played well. Junior there, PD played defense. I think played really well. So a lot of positives tonight.
What did you like about Chytil and his game in particular tonight?
Really good, controlling the play, wanted the puck. Off the rush, you could, obviously he's a guy that can make some plays off the rush. Obviously, big goal for us. So it was a good debut for him.
DPD also grabbing his first NHL point. What does that mean for a guy like him?
Yeah, we like him a lot. I thought he played good tonight. He had some of his shots from the point. He's got a heavy shot. He's a thick guy, so a lot to build off.
And Kiefer Sherwood now holds the franchise record for hits in a single season. How impressive is that?
Yeah, it's hard to hit all the time. Yeah, he's done a nice job finishing the body. It's great.
We saw from Chytil and O'Connor, two of your new players, a lot of control in transition, a lot of controlled zone entries. Is that something you'd like to see rub off on the players that were already here before those trades? You'd like to see more of that possession on zone entries?
Yeah, they got speed, right? To be a good rush team, you have to have speed. We just added two guys that have a lot of speed. And they understand, too, getting off the wall, getting the puck in the middle. So hopefully that's contagious. You're right.
And it seemed like the Pettersson line through the first two periods really was struggling to get anything going in the offensive zone, but they seemed to come alive a little bit in the third period. What did you see from them throughout the course of the game?
The same as you. Same as you. We had 3-on-1. We had a couple 2-on-1s. We're missing the net connecting, and they had I didn't think they had many chances all tonight, but they had a couple of rush chances. It's in their net, in our net. So we got to hit the net. We got to make we got to make those moments count.
Now, wait a second here, because Daniel Wagner didn't offer up an opinion of what he thought. He asked the coach what he saw from that line.
You said it, Wags.
Same as you. I guess.
You said it, Wags.
I think Rick Tocchet understood why he was being asked the question. Yeah, that's not a glowing review for not just Elias Pettersson, but I thought Jake DeBrusk was really quiet in this hockey game. Besser had some moments. Besser had the chance in the first, minute, 90 seconds when Hronek sprung him on the breakaway. So there were a few things from Brock Besser. I didn't see much from Jake DeBrusk in this hockey game. But again, every road leads back to number 40. Obviously, Coach wasn't having much of it.
There were a couple of moments DeBrusk had the puck sort of near the net, behind the net, and he lost the puck battle. He just needed to dig a little bit deeper, maybe, dip his shoulder a little bit more, bend his hip a little bit more. It just was one of those kinds of nights. I have been generally an admirer of Jake DeBrusk. I've appreciated the way he gets on the puck. But he has these nights, and when he's like that, and obviously Brock Besser is a guy that is ready to finish, and I think he's a smart player on the wall generally, but he's a guy that's waiting to finish. If you're not maintaining control of the puck, and like I said, DeBrusk was losing puck battles, and PD again had moments but lacked consistency. That's no wonder. There's also that 3-on-1, right? Went for the shot and missed badly. I think that's probably what Tocchet was referring to. Rush chances missing the net. That drives crazy. We know this going back to last year. That drives crazy. If you're going to take a shot,
but in Brock's defense, his options were Dakota Joshua and Derek Forbert. They were the other guys on the 3-on-1. So Brock's a shooter. He elected to shoot.
Yeah, the shooter's going to shoot,
but hit the net.
Yeah.
Maybe the biggest takeaway from all, did Tocchet drop a junior in there?
He did. Yeah.
Now, that kind of meshes with, apparently DPD was asked about nicknames and said something post-game about somebody's come up with a new nickname for him, but he doesn't really like it. He didn't want to reveal it. So I'm wondering if that's
Junior.
As simple as Junior.
Yeah. Well, Jeff, you have your power investigative journalism tools that you put to use to figure out when Aatu Ratu arrived in here. So, this could be your next case.
I was really curious because Aatu Ratu played with the Canucks in Dallas on Friday. He also played for Abbotsford on Saturday. There's sort of a geographical gap there that had to be bridged. And the Canucks flew in and landed at 3:30 at YVR, and then you do the math there. So I was curious, did Ratu fly home with the Canucks? The answer is no. I found out the head coach confirmed that they sent Ratu home on his own on an early. So the team flies on this lovely charter flight Matti Ratu's got to fly commercial from Dallas and then drive out to Abbotsford and play an American Hockey League game. So there's the difference between being a full-time NHLer and a guy that's on the cusp. But yes, I was curious when I saw Ratu in the lineup on Saturday. Abbotsford beat Calgary. They split their weekend season or their weekend series there. No Jonathan Lekkerimäki for a third straight game, but I was told again by Patrick Alvin yesterday that it's not serious, that he thought he was going to play last night, but that's 3 straight now for Lekkerimäki. And we should point out as well, with DP not going to the AHL All-Star game, Ty Mueller, who, good for him. Like, I know it's a fill-in role there, but great opportunity. Go rub shoulders with some of the other best players in the American Hockey League, and he's really quietly become a nice sort of underreported story down in Abbotsford for, a later round draft pick that was a bit of an afterthought, nobody talking about, and this guy's just showed up and from training camp on has played hard for the Abbotsford Canucks. So good opportunity for him.
You by the way, you're a guy that collects hockey dads. And if I'm not mistaken, I mean, you admitted to having Victor Mancini's, if I'm not mistaken, his hockey dad. I think you were telling me is already following you on social media, and I believe that Ty Mueller. I mean, these guys, these are your guys. They're your guys.
Maybe we'll see. Mancini's dad's interesting story that he's higher up in USA Hockey in the development side of things. He worked for the Oilers as a development coach a while back, but he has. If you look at his elite prospects, the dad I'm talking about, not Victor, the dad was the head coach of South Africa's national hockey team. So
fantastic.
Might be a story there.
Oh, that's absolutely. That's my kind of story.
I know it is. So
how many South African rugby players play hockey? There we go. Let's go.
Yeah. And this is a guy that went and played some junior hockey. Now I'm talking to Victor in Sweden.
Yeah.
You don't see too many guys leave North America to go to Sweden in their junior teenage years, but he did that, and then COVID came, and he stayed and played there as well. So interesting story, both father and son. All right, just as we wrap things up here, we've mentioned Greta a couple of times, but the next watch party is taking place during the Four Nations face-off, Canada versus the USA. We'll see if Quinn Hughes is part of that. I asked Rick Tocchet this morning if he had any discussions with Hughes about Four Nations, and Rick said, nah. And then he said, I'm Canada and he's U.S. And I was like, yeah, I know. Isn't that more reason not to want him to go and play for his country? And Tocchet kind of laughed at that. But we'll see where that goes. Certainly that is a story this week, I think. But regardless, Canada is going to play the U.S. February 15th. Come watch it at Greta. It's going to be hosted by Sakaris and Price. We've got raffles with exclusive prizes. Your chance to party it up and cheer for a once-in-a-lifetime Team Canada. All in support of the Social Run Club YVR. Tickets are $10, or you can snag a VIP package that includes a burger, beverage, and arcade game card for $40. Up to 6 people with each VIP package. Doors at 4 o'clock, the puck drop at 5. It is a 19-plus event. Grab your tickets now, nationgear.ca. We hope to see you at Greta for a terrific night when Canada plays the United States. All right, so just to recap here a little bit. We're on Quinn Hughes watch for Tuesday. Rick Tocchet said we'll see what the next 48 hours bring. I would think there'll be a Monday practice for all these new guys to get together and actually try and drill down on some things. So we'll see what that brings. We'll see if I can't imagine that Quinn will be a part of that based on the fact that he didn't play, but who knows? Again, he did take the warm-up, so we saw him. He was on skates at one point earlier this evening. But there's the Quinn Hughes watch. And then you've got Colorado and just all the problems that can present on Tuesday night as the Canucks try to bounce back from another disappointing overtime loss and see if they can get it right against the Avs for the second time this season. All right, I was worried that as we wrap things up, Elliot Friedman was going to tweet that you and I had to stay on here for another hour. I think we've avoided that one, unlike Friday night, which was fun. And, I mean, this is why we are in the business and do what we do for moments like that, big moments in Vancouver Canuck history. And we got a lot of those on Friday as they fundamentally altered the composition of their roster. But I think we are trade-free here on this Sunday night. So we'll call it a night. We want to thank Jacob Lazar working hard behind the scenes. Pat, you'll be back with us on Tuesday?
In person, yeah.
In person? Oh, good. Okay, well, we look forward to that. And again, the Vancouver Canucks get goals from Pius Suter and Filip Chytil, but Alex DeBrincat wins it in overtime 4:18 of overtime, his second of the night. 3-2, the Detroit Red Wings defeat the Vancouver Canucks. Thanks to everybody and an active chat, as you can imagine. So we appreciate all the support, all the comments. Try to work in as many as we can as we work our way through another episode of Rink Wide Vancouver.